Hello, welcome to another episode of The Monsters Within. Now, as you all know, I normally like to spend this first few minutes reminding everybody that this is a safe space and that it is okay to have no commitment here. No fear of judgment, no worry of prosecution. It's just a safe space. Now, today I'm going to be talking with a very dear friend of mine about his experience with depression and the stereotypes that come along with being a male and suffering from depression. And I know this is a bit of a draw away from what I said we were going to be doing last week, but that didn't quite pan out. So here we are. So I would like to introduce Damen.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here.
All right. So it's good to have you on. And is there anything that you would like to say to the audience before we get started?
I would just like to remind the audience that this is a safe place, that it's okay, no matter how you may have found yourself here. It is acceptable to be here, and maybe you listen for a couple minutes, maybe you listen all the way. No matter what, it's okay. You're a human being. You have worth.
Nicely put. So, Damen, how do you say that you deal with your depression?
Best ways I deal with my depression is usually involving myself with my favorite hobbies and activities that I like to do. For me personally, that usually means work. That usually means work, video games, reading, and a little bit of writing. And on occasion, especially nowadays, I will reach out to friends and try to just have a conversation between friends. No strings attached, no judgment, nothing like that. Just talking about whatever the mood strikes us. Some of the bad ways I deal with depression, because as we both know, everybody has both good ways and bad ways to deal with it. For personally, I have a bit of an alcohol abuse problem. And smoking, and I tend to shut down and shut people out.
Well, I'm glad that you can come to terms with the fact that you handle depression in both positive and negative ways. I applaud you for that. That's awesome. So, you said that you throw yourself into your work. Would you really classify that as a positive way of handling your depression, or is it just a means to an end?
It's a little bit of both. I've spent the majority of my life doing hard labor, and I've come to find that I enjoy the strenuous physical activity. I enjoy physically wearing my body out. It makes it easier to sleep and come home and cope with things and relax for the day. But at the same time, it is definitely sometimes not the best way to deal with it, because I have begun to look at it a little differently, and I've begun to realize that instead of sacrificing for work to a certain extent, I'm abusing my body to work, if that makes any sense, for the simple fact of sometimes it's nothing more than an escape. Because focusing my mind on the task before me instead of dealing with what I should be dealing with is repetitious and tedious and something simple enough to take my mind off of everything that it becomes an escape, but not a good escape. It becomes a way to shut myself down.
Okay. Well, at least you can understand that there are good and bad reasons why you do the things that you do, and that's awesome. So let's go back and let's talk about how you, as a child or as a teenager or as a young adult, were first prosecuted for showing emotion when it came to your depression. Can you walk me through that?
It's not an easy road to take, but it's definitely one I can take. For my household, um, I had a number of siblings always around, so and to an extent that was definitely kind of nice. Having a big family, having people who are always there, who I'm supposed to be able to talk to, and everything else like that. But at the same time, there was just so much always going on in my household, and even as a child, I was so quiet. I got kind of pushed to the side on occasion because which it's understandable from the parent point of view of if you have four kids running around in a household, you have two older kids who are constantly getting in trouble and constantly causing problems and fighting with each other, and then you have a younger child who you're trying to keep off the right path, or trying to keep on the right path. I apologize. And then you have a child who's always buried in a book, or always by themselves, or always just kind of sitting there not doing anything. It's really easy to forget that they exist because they don't ask for much, but the other people around ask for so much that it's really easy to forget them. But at the same time, growing up that way and having a first-hand experience of what it was like, it didn't feel great to be forgotten about, because it made me feel like I was worthless, that me as a person, I was irrelevant.
And that's a really hard thing to deal with as a kid, to feel like you are so insignificant. But I want you to dig more into how your parental figures approached the situation of this child is acting reclusive or uninterested and withdrawn, and how they handled that situation, and if it was a good or a bad experience.
There was definitely some good experiences. I'm not going to say everything was bad. There was definitely times where they tried to include me, hey, we're going to the beach as a family, or hey, why don't you walk with me down to the little pizza place and we can get a pizza for the whole family, and it would just be me and my stepfather, me and my mom. It would just be me and one of the parents, which was nice. But for the majority of it, the way, since I was so recluse and withdrawn, the way that they dealt with any kind of outburst of emotion that came from me was to shut it down as quickly as they could because they didn't understand how to handle it. The best example I can give of that is I believe I was 7 or 8 years old, and I had a pretty big problem with being bullied at school. And in this particular scenario, I had been cornered by three older boys from my school because of the way I looked, the way I spoke, or just because they saw me as small and insignificant and an easy target. So I did my best to fight back, but you know, you're 6, 7, 8 years old, you're small, you're up against three people, there's not much you can do. So I got beat up. It happens. But when I get home, my mom had taken my siblings out for the day. So the only one home was my father at the time. And he was drunk, and I come home crying. I come home bawling my eyes out because I had just, well, for lack of a better word, I had just gotten the shit beat out of me. The way my stepfather decided to deal with that was he decided to proceed to beat me with his leather belt. The first time was for getting into a fight. And then he proceeded to beat me even worse the second time. The second time was, according to his reasoning, for having been involved in a fight and losing. Because I was a man, and if I got into a fight, that meant that I should win. You don't cry. You got a problem, you handle it. You don't show it. And one of the biggest things that has stuck with me from that day is the fact of him ordering me to put my hands up against the wall and proceeding to take that metal belt buckle to my hands and my arms until I could no longer shed a tear, because I knew if I did, if I so much as made a whimper in pain, it was just gonna get worse.
Wow, that's really heavy. And this is exactly what I want to bring to light, is that our sons, our lovers, friends, relatives they're being molded into this stereotype of being a man, being strong, unyielding, a fortress, and impenetrable. And in ways that's positive, but in other ways it's very negative. And the way that it's being done even now, it's detrimental to our kids, it's detrimental to our relationships, our family bonds, how we interact with people. We need to do something about this. There needs to be a honest conversation about how we show our sons, our lovers, our friends, that it's okay to be vulnerable. That vulnerability is not weakness. It's just so heart-wrenching to hear that, to see that the people that you are supposed to expect them to be there have done the exact opposite and turned their back on you because you weren't manly enough. And I despise that word. It is a nasty word in my book. It should not even exist in this world. There's a difference between being strong and being masculine. So,
right, and those two words. Sorry about that. Those two words are not mutually exclusive or inclusive. You don't have to be masculine to be strong. You don't have to be strong to be masculine.
Exactly. You really don't. And it drives me wild to see that women have such a monopoly on being more emotional. It just doesn't quite click in my head. I don't know how to otherwise put it. There should be no gender specification to being a human being and embracing the hurt, the desperation, the betrayal, or any other negative emotion, and know that when you open up about it, it's a safe spot to do so, and you aren't going to get persecuted for it. So I've got a good question for you.
Of course, and go ahead.
What is something that we can do as a community to essentially take this fight to the front line?
I think one of the most important things we can do is to get better about accepting that every person, and this isn't just for males, this is actually for both genders, but every person views and handles things differently. And some males view and handle things similar to a bunch of other males, and some males view and handle things similarly to females, and that is acceptable. Sometimes you just have to find the method of trying to see things through their eyes, and sometimes just help them speak up about what they're going through in a way that they can understand from their point of view.
Okay. That's a good start. Now, I'm going to be a little political for a minute here. And just a forewarning to everybody that's listening, I hope that you don't take any offense to this, but what are we doing by not taking into the account that all lives matter? Now, I know it's the Black Lives Matter thing is truly a step in the right direction, but why are we conquering it one step at a time, people? Come on. All lives matter. We are all here. We are all human beings. Why can't we just take that step forward, cut out the middleman, and accept the fact that despite our race, despite our gender identification, ideals, career choices, or anything else, we are all human beings. All of our lives matter. From the smallest little boy who is being told that it isn't okay to show his emotion, to a girl in the streets getting raped. What is the difference? There is none. We're all human beings. So, listeners, what can we do? I would love to hear from you guys. Let me know what it is that you think that we can do to help the men in our lives find a safe space for them to feel like it is okay to release their burden, to express their hurt in however way that they express it, in a positive way. How can we do that? So let me know. I would love to hear from you guys. And to all the parents out there with beautiful sons, don't do it. Do not put that burden on your gorgeous child. It may not have been the way you were raised, but that little boy deserves to be acknowledged as a human being. Now, let's bring it back in and talk a little bit more about what's causing this transformation to happen. Because from the sounds of it is that you've somehow reached a breakthrough. And after years of knowing you, there's an obvious difference because you were always very reclusive. So what is it that is causing you to finally step out of that box that you were put in as a young kid, saying it is not okay to be this way, it is not okay to be vulnerable, and to accept your emotions, to finally turn around and say, I'm accepting my emotions.
I have been through a lot in all my years of life. I have been hurt, and I have been betrayed, and I have been backstabbed, and I have been abandoned. And there's a lot of trauma, and there's a lot of things I haven't quite processed yet. There's still some boxes I still have to open and things like that. But I got lucky. I got lucky in the sense of I met the right people, but not only did I get lucky enough that I met the right people, I got lucky enough that I started to realize I had met the right people, and that I wanted to do better and be better and be myself for once. I stopped searching for the acknowledgement or the sense of, oh, if I do this, if I pursue this, if I pursue this person, if I pursue this career, if I buy this car, everything's gonna be okay, because somebody's gonna come along and they're gonna really look at me and they're gonna tell me, oh, you're doing things right. Because nobody's gonna come along and tell me I'm doing things right. Because for every person that comes along and tells me I'm doing things right, there's gonna be a dozen other behind them telling me I'm doing things wrong. Which is understandable, because to a certain extent, because from their point of view, from the way they see things, yes, I am doing things wrong. But they aren't me. They don't have to live in my skin. They don't have to deal with my demons. They don't sleep in my bed at night. They don't deal with the same people I deal with the same way I do. And I'm starting to come to terms with the fact of that's okay. That is perfectly acceptable. I'm finally coming to the terms with the fact of I have been unhappy for the majority of my life for the simple fact of I had no real concept of what happy was.
Wow.
And there's so many examples I could give. There's so many examples I could use. But I've started to sit down and examine my memories and examine the people in my life and examine how I do things. And I've started discarding certain parts and certain people and certain ways of viewing and doing things for the simple matter of fact of some things just don't feel right for me, and that's fine. Some things do. And I spent the majority of my life hiding away from the things that make me feel good, because I was taught that they weren't acceptable. But I'm coming to terms with the fact of that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's not acceptable to somebody else. Because to me it is. Because the only person whose opinion on whether or not what I want or what I want to do is acceptable is mine, and at most, whoever I may choose to share my life with.
Good for you. So it sounds like it's just been a long, heavy road that you've had to go through to get to this point.
Yes, it has been. But I got lucky that I had the help of a lot of really good people on the way. Although sometimes, just like any other human being, sometimes I was blind to it.
Yeah, it's always good to have a support system, in that I talk about that in one of my videos. And again, support system, people, it is so
life changer.
Yes, it is a life changer. It is a very big decision, and role that you can play in somebody's life, is to be a support system to them. So without drawing this out anymore, do you have a message for the guys out there who are maybe they're hurting, or they're in a rough spot, or a little boy who may be listening to this while his mom is driving him to, go run errands? Do you have a message for them?
Sometimes it's okay not to be okay. You don't always have to reach out to somebody. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes you just need time to process things on your own. But it's okay not to be okay. And when it comes right down to it, nobody can tell you how to do things right. You're the only one who can decide on that. Because we're human beings. We're all just alive trying to make it through this world, and you know what? We don't have to have everything figured out. Maybe you're 6 and your parents are pushing you to get amazing grades in school because you've shown that you can. And so you believe that you have to pursue this career path, and you have to go to college, and you have to be this amazing person, become a doctor. But maybe that's not what you want. Maybe you're a teenager. Maybe you're 13, 14 years old, and maybe you want to be an artist. Maybe you want to be a day laborer. Maybe you want to one day be a CEO. Decide on what fits for you. What makes you happy? Because I can tell you right now from personal experience that I am at this stage that I'm right now, and I have plenty of friends who are older than me and who are younger than me, who it's okay not to have it figured out yet. There's people in their 50s who are finally getting started on the career of their dreams. There's people in their 20s who figured out what they wanted and are pursuing what they want. It's okay not to have it figured out quite yet. That's acceptable. It happens. You just gotta take it one step at a time, and hopefully one day you'll get there. And that's okay.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for joining me, and maybe we will see you again. So it was wonderful to talk to you.
I appreciate you having me on the podcast. It was a lot of fun.
All right. So, like he said, guys, it's okay. Reach out. Maybe you don't need to, but always know that if anybody is there for you, it's going to be your support system. And if you don't have one, well, my email address is down in the description. You guys are always welcome to send me a message and to talk to me. I'm up quite a bit. But so next week, I don't have anything planned. We're just gonna roll with the punches this time and see where it takes us. So remember that this is a safe space, and you are always welcome here. Bye, everybody.